I think I didn't do anything wrong, just had a little fun on my work trip. Everyone does it, right? But when I came home and saw the envelope marked summons to court on our kitchen table, I realized my husband had turned everything upside down. Now everyone is acting like I'm the villain, but honestly, I was just living my life. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. The flight from Denver had been smooth, but walking through our front door felt like stepping into a freezer. Eric barely looked up from his laptop when I wheeled my suitcase into the living room, just gave me this weird little nod like I was the mailman or something. "Hey, babe," I said, trying to sound normal. "Miss me?" "How was the conference?" His voice was flat, mechanical. He didn't even close the laptop. I dropped my purse on the couch and studied his face. Eric had always been the quiet type. That's what attracted me to him initially. While other guys were loud and demanding attention, he was steady, reliable. But this felt different. This felt cold. It was fine. Boring presentations, terrible hotel coffee. You know how these things are. I sat down next to him, close enough that our knees touched. "I brought you something." I pulled out a small snow globe from the Denver airport gift shop. Eric took it without enthusiasm, shook it once, and set it on the coffee table. "Thanks," he said, still staring at his screen. "Eric, what's wrong? You're acting weird." Finally, he looked at me. Really looked at me. His brown eyes, usually warm and gentle, seemed to be searching for something. "Am I? I don't feel like I'm acting any differently." "You're being paranoid." The words came out sharper than I intended. I was gone for 4 days on a work trip. It's not like I disappeared to Vegas or something. "I never said you did." "Then why are you acting like this? Like I did something wrong?" Eric closed his laptop slowly. "Did you?" My heart skipped, but I forced myself to laugh. "Oh my God, Eric, this is exactly what I'm talking about. You're being ridiculous. I went to a marketing conference, sat through presentations about consumer analytics, and ate overpriced room service. That's it. Okay. Okay? That's all you're going to say?" He stood up, tucking his laptop under his arm. "I'm going to bed. Long day tomorrow." I watched him walk toward the stairs, his shoulders rigid. "Eric, wait. Can we talk about this?" He paused at the bottom of the staircase. "Talk about what, Yanthi? You said nothing happened. What's there to talk about?" After he disappeared upstairs, I sat alone in our living room, staring at that stupid snow globe. The little plastic buildings inside looked perfect and untouchable behind the glass. I shook it again, watching the fake snow swirl around, and tried to figure out what Eric could possibly know. The conference had been in Denver, just like I said. And yes, there had been presentations and networking events, but there had also been Cameron Lee from the Portland branch, with his easy smile and the way he actually listened when I talked. Cameron, who made me feel interesting and desired in a way I hadn't felt in years. We'd had drinks at the hotel bar after the first day's sessions, then dinner the second night. By the third night, well, things happened. Adult things between two consenting adults who were stuck in a boring hotel in a boring city. But how could Eric possibly know? I'd been careful. No photos, no social media posts with Cameron in them. I'd even paid for dinner in cash that one night, just to be safe. My phone buzzed with a text from my mom. "How was the trip, honey?" Eric seemed worried when I called yesterday. "Worried?" I typed back quickly. "Trip was great. Eric's just tired from work. Everything's fine." But as I climbed the stairs to our bedroom, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was definitely not fine. Eric was already in bed, turned away from me, his breathing too even to be natural sleep. I changed into my pajamas quietly, slipped under the covers, and stared at the ceiling in the dark. "Eric," I whispered. No response. "I love you," I said to his back. Still nothing. I lay there for what felt like hours, listening to the house settle around us. Our 8-year-old daughter Sophie was sleeping peacefully down the hall, completely unaware that something had shifted in our home while I was away. Whatever Eric suspected, whatever was making him act like this, I had to fix it. I had to make him understand that what happened in Denver didn't mean anything. It was just a momentary lapse, a brief escape from the routine of our suburban life. Everyone deserved a little excitement, right? Everyone deserved to feel wanted and appreciated. Eric used to make me feel that way, but somewhere between the mortgage payments and parent-teacher conferences, we'd lost that spark. Cameron had reminded me what it felt like to be seen as a woman, not just a wife and mother. But Eric didn't need to know about any of that. What he didn't know couldn't hurt him, and what happened in Denver would stay in Denver. I just had to weather whatever this mood was, and things would go back to normal. The next morning, I woke up to an empty bed. Eric's side was cold, like he'd been up for hours. Downstairs, I found him at the kitchen table with his coffee and a stack of papers. Sophie was eating cereal and watching something on her tablet. "Morning, baby," I said, kissing the top of Sophie's head. She barely acknowledged me, too absorbed in her show. "Morning," Eric said without looking up from his papers. I poured myself coffee and sat down across from him. "What are you working on?" "Bills." "On Saturday morning?" "They don't pay themselves." I studied his face, looking for any crack in this new cold demeanor. "Eric, please, can you just tell me what's wrong? This silent treatment is ridiculous." He finally looked up, and for a moment I saw something flash in his eyes. Pain, maybe. Or anger. "I'm not giving you the silent treatment, Ianthe. I'm just busy." "You're being passive-aggressive." "Am I?" "Yes. You're acting like I cheated on you or something." The words hung in the air between us. Eric's expression didn't change, but Sophie looked up from her tablet. "What's cheating?" she asked. "Nothing, sweetheart," I said quickly. "Daddy and I are just talking about work stuff." Eric stood up, gathering his papers. "I'm going to run some errands. Sophie, want to come with me to Home Depot?" "Can I get a slushie?" "Sure." As they got ready to leave, I felt a growing sense of panic. This wasn't like Eric at all. He didn't play games or give ultimatums. He was straightforward, almost to a fault. If he was acting like this, he had to have a reason. "Eric, wait." I followed him to the garage. "Please, just talk to me. Whatever you think happened..." "I don't think anything happened, Ianthe." He opened the car door for Sophie, made sure she was buckled in. "You told me nothing happened. I believe you." But his tone said the exact opposite. After they left, I found myself pacing through our house, looking for clues about what might have tipped him off. Had I said something? Left something out? My suitcase was still in the bedroom, and I went through every pocket, every compartment. Nothing. My phone was clean too. I'd been smart about that, never saving Cameron's number, deleting any texts immediately. There was no digital trail for Eric to follow. So, what was this about? I called my mom. "Ianthe, honey, how are you feeling? You sounded stressed in your text last night." "I'm fine, Mom, but Eric's being weird. He's acting like I did something wrong on my trip." There was a pause. "Well, did you?" "Mom?" "I'm just asking. You've been complaining about Eric being boring for months. I just hope you didn't do anything foolish." "I went to a work conference, that's it." "Good, because men are fragile, sweetheart. Their egos can't handle much. If Eric's acting strange, maybe you need to reassure him, make him feel special." After I hung up, I tried to take her advice. I made Eric's favorite dinner, opened a bottle of wine, even put on the dress he'd bought me for my birthday. When he and Sophie came home, I was ready to reset our entire weekend. "Smells good," he said, but his tone was still neutral. During dinner, I tried to draw him into conversation about his work, about Sophie's upcoming school play, about anything that might break through this wall he'd built. Sophie chatted about the slushy flavors at Home Depot, and Eric engaged with her warmly. But every time I spoke, His responses were polite and distant. After Sophie went to bed, I poured us both more wine and sat next to him on the couch. "Eric, I miss you." He looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time since I'd come home. "I'm right here." "No, you're not. You're somewhere else entirely." I put my hand on his knee. "Come back to me." For a moment, I thought I saw his resolve soften, but then he gently moved my hand away. "I'm tired, Ianthe. I think I'll go to bed early." "It's only 8:30. Long week." As he headed upstairs, I called after him. "Eric, do you still love me?" He stopped, his hand on the banister. Without turning around, he said, "I love the woman I married. I'm just not sure where she went." Monday morning at the office felt like stepping into another world. After the tension at home all weekend, the familiar chaos of ringing phones and coffee-stained desks was almost comforting. I threw myself into work, hoping that focusing on quarterly reports and campaign metrics would help me forget about Eric's cold shoulder. But by lunch, I was going crazy. I needed to talk to someone, and Alison Ward had been my go-to person for everything since college. We'd been through divorces, job changes, and every major life crisis together. If anyone would understand, it would be her. "Want to grab lunch?" I texted her. "Can't leave the office today. Rain check." I stared at my phone, feeling more isolated than ever. Even my best friend was too busy for me. I decided to eat at my desk and bury myself in work, but concentration was impossible. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped, thinking it might be Eric finally ready to talk. Instead, it was just spam emails and meeting reminders. Around 3 o'clock, I couldn't take it anymore. I walked over to Alison's desk in the accounting department. "Hey, stranger," I said, trying to sound casual. "Busy day?" She looked up from her computer, and I immediately noticed something was off. Alison usually lit up when she saw me, ready with office gossip or funny stories about her kids. Today, she seemed guarded. "Oh, hi, Ianthe. Yeah, month-end closing. You know how it is." "Want to grab coffee? I need a break from staring at spreadsheets." She glanced around the office, then back at her screen. "I really can't. Maybe later this week." There was something in her tone that made my stomach drop. "Alison, is everything okay? You're acting weird too." "Too?" "Eric's been giving me the cold shoulder since I got back from Denver. Now you're being strange. Did I miss some memo about treating Ianthe like a pariah?" She finally looked at me directly, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Disappointment? Judgment? "Ianthe, maybe we should talk, but not here." We ended up in the small break room on the second floor, away from our usual crowd. Alison closed the door behind us and crossed her arms. "I heard something," she said quietly. My heart started racing. "Heard what?" "About your trip to Denver. About you and Cameron Lee." The blood drained from my face. "What are you talking about?" "Jessica from HR was at the conference too. She saw you and Cameron at the hotel bar, and then she saw you getting on the elevator together. Multiple times." Jessica Martinez. I'd barely noticed her at the conference, just another face in the crowd of attendees. She'd been so quiet during the sessions, I'd forgotten she was even there. "So what? We had drinks, we talked shop, we're colleagues." Alison's expression didn't change. "Ianthe, she saw you kissing him. In the elevator." I felt like the floor was falling out from under me. That's not what happened. Isn't it?" I stared at my best friend, searching for any sign of the unconditional support she'd always given me. Instead, I found someone who was looking at me like I was a stranger. "Alison, you know me. You know I would never." "Do I? Because the Ianthe I know has been complaining about Eric for months. About how boring he is, how he doesn't appreciate you, how you feel invisible in your own marriage." "That doesn't mean I would cheat. Then tell me nothing happened. Look me in the eye and tell me you didn't sleep with Cameron Lee." I opened my mouth to deny it, but the words wouldn't come. Alison and I had been friends for too long. She knew all my tells, all my defense mechanisms. She would see right through any lie I tried to construct. "It's complicated," I said finally. She closed her eyes and shook her head. "Oh, Ianthe, what did you do?" "It wasn't planned. It just happened. We were both lonely, both stuck in this boring conference, and there was this connection. You're married. You have a daughter." "I know that. Don't you think I know that? But Eric and I, we've been like roommates for years. When's the last time he looked at me the way Cameron did? When's the last time he made me feel beautiful or interesting or—" "So you decided to have an affair." "It wasn't an affair. It was one night, one mistake, and it's over." "Does Eric know?" I thought about his cold behavior, his strange questions. "I don't know. Maybe he suspects something, but he can't know for sure. Unless—" I looked at her sharply. "You didn't tell anyone, did you?" "Of course not. But Ianthe, Jessica isn't exactly known for keeping secrets." And she seemed pretty shocked by what she saw. My mind raced through the implications. If Jessica was talking, how many people at the office knew? How long before it got back to Eric? How long before it got back to Sophie's school, to our neighbors, to Eric's family? "I have to fix this," I said, more to myself than to Allison. "How? You can't unfuck Cameron Lee." The crude words hit me like a slap. Allison never talked like that, never used language like that. The fact that she did now told me exactly how angry and disappointed she was. I need Eric to trust me. I need to convince him that whatever he's thinking is wrong. By lying to him, by protecting my family, what good would it do to destroy everything over one meaningless night? Allison stared at me for a long moment. "You really don't get it, do you? This isn't about protecting your family. This is about protecting yourself. That's not fair, isn't it? You cheated on your husband, and now you're more worried about covering it up than about the fact that you betrayed the man who loves you." "Loved," I corrected without thinking. "Past tense. Eric hasn't loved me in years. He just tolerates me." "And that gave you permission to cheat?" I felt tears starting to build behind my eyes. This wasn't going the way I'd hoped. I'd come to Allison for support, for understanding, for help figuring out how to navigate this mess. Instead, she was acting like everyone else, like I was some kind of monster. "I thought you were my friend," I said. "I am your friend. That's why I'm telling you the truth instead of what you want to hear. You screwed up, Ianthe, badly, and now you need to figure out how to make it right." "By destroying my marriage?" "Your marriage is already destroyed. You destroyed it the minute you got into bed with Cameron Lee." I left the break room feeling worse than when I'd entered. The rest of the afternoon crawled by, and I found myself jumping every time someone walked past my cubicle. Were they looking at me differently? Did they know? How far had the gossip spread? At 5 o'clock, I practically ran to my car. I needed to get home, needed to see Eric and Sophie, and remember what I was fighting to protect. But as I pulled into our driveway, I saw Eric's car wasn't there. Only my mother-in-law Diane's silver Honda sat in his usual spot. I found Diane in our kitchen with Sophie, helping her with homework. Diane looked up when I walked in, and her smile seemed forced. "Hello, Ianthe. How was work?" "Fine. Where's Eric?" "He had to work late. He asked if I could pick up Sophie from school and help with her homework." This was new. Eric never worked late, and he'd never asked his mother to pick up Sophie without talking to me first. Something was definitely wrong. "That's strange. He didn't mention having to work late this morning." Diane's expression was carefully neutral. "Things come up." I studied her face, looking for clues. Diane had never been warm toward me, but she'd always been polite. Tonight there was something different in her demeanor, a coolness that reminded me of Eric's behavior all weekend. "Mom, can I have a snack?" Sophie asked, looking up from her math worksheet. "After you finish your homework," I said automatically. "Grandma said I could have cookies when I got to problem 10. I looked at Diane, who was already moving toward our cookie jar. Of course she did. "Is that a problem?" Diane asked. her voice carrying a slight edge. "No, it's fine. I just like to know what's happening in my own house." "Your house," Diane repeated as if tasting the words. "Yes, I suppose it is." There was definitely something in her tone now, something that made me feel like I was being judged and found wanting. After Sophie finished her homework and Diane left, I tried calling Eric. It went straight to voicemail. "Hey, it's me. Your mom said you had to work late. Just wanted to make sure everything's okay. Call me back." He didn't. Sophie and I had dinner alone, and she seemed quieter than usual. Normally, she chatted non-stop about school, her friends, whatever show she was watching. Tonight, she picked at her food and kept glancing toward the door like she was waiting for her dad to come home. "Is Daddy okay?" she asked finally. "Of course he's okay. Why would you ask that?" "He seemed sad this weekend, and Grandma seemed sad too." Kids were too perceptive sometimes. "Everyone gets sad sometimes, baby. It doesn't mean anything's wrong." But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. Everything was wrong, and it was getting worse by the hour. Eric finally came home after Sophie was in bed. I was waiting for him in the living room, trying to look casual while reading a magazine I wasn't actually absorbing. "Long day?" I asked when he walked in. "Yeah." He loosened his tie, looking exhausted. "What kept you so late?" "Just work stuff, quarterly reports." I knew it was a lie. Eric was an accountant, but he worked for a small firm that handled local businesses. They didn't have the kind of deadline pressures that would keep him at the office until 9 o'clock on a Monday night. "Your mom picked up Sophie." "I know. I asked her to." Without talking to me first. He looked at me then, and I saw something I'd never seen in his eyes before, a hardness that made my stomach clench. Did I need permission to ask my mother to help with our daughter? No, but it would have been nice to know. I was worried when I got home and you weren't here. Were you? Or were you just annoyed that your routine was disrupted? What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. I'm tired, Ianthe. I'm going to bed. As he headed toward the stairs, I made a decision. I couldn't keep dancing around this anymore. "Eric, wait. We need to talk." He stopped, his back still to me. "About what?" "About whatever's been bothering you since I got back from Denver. About why you're acting like I'm some kind of stranger." Slowly, he turned around. "Do you really want to have this conversation?" Something in his tone made me hesitate, but I pressed forward. "Yes, I want to know what I supposedly did wrong." "Supposedly?" "Yes, supposedly, because I haven't done anything wrong, and I'm tired of being treated like I have." Eric stared at me for a long moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. After scrolling for a few seconds, he turned the screen toward me. It was an email. The sender was listed as a concerned friend, and attached were 3 photos. Me and Cameron at the hotel bar, laughing over drinks. Me and Cameron in the hotel lobby, standing very close together. And me and Cameron in what was clearly a hotel hallway, his hand on my waist, my face tilted up toward his. I felt all the blood drain from my face. "Eric, I can explain." "Can you?" His voice was deadly quiet. "Because I've been trying to come up with an explanation for 3 days now, and I can't think of a single innocent reason why my wife would be photographed in what looks like a very intimate situation with another man." "It's not what it looks like." "Then what is it, Ianthe? What exactly am I looking at?" I opened my mouth, but no words came out. How could I explain that Cameron and I had just been talking in that hallway? That his hand on my waist didn't mean anything? That the way I was looking at him was just friendly conversation? I couldn't, because it would all be lies. And looking at Eric's face, at the pain and betrayal written there, I realized he already knew the truth. "Who sent you this?" I asked instead. "Does it matter?" "Yes, it matters. Someone is trying to destroy our marriage, and you're just going to let them." "Someone destroyed our marriage, Ianthe, but it wasn't whoever sent me these photos." The next few days passed in a blur of forced normalcy and mounting tension. Eric continued his cold politeness, speaking to me only when necessary and always in front of Sophie. I threw myself into damage control, trying to figure out who had sent those photos and how much they actually knew. Cameron had been texting me since Monday, casual messages, asking how I was doing and whether I wanted to grab coffee when he was in town next week. I'd been ignoring them, but finally sent back a brief message. Can't. Family stuff. Please don't contact me anymore. His response was immediate. Everything okay? Did something happen? I deleted the message without responding and blocked his number. Whatever had happened between us in Denver was over, and I needed to focus on saving my marriage. By Thursday, I was starting to think maybe Eric and I could work through this. He'd shown me the photos, I'd deflected and denied, and while he clearly didn't believe me, he also hadn't packed his bags or demanded I leave. Maybe we could find a way past this. Then Diane called and invited us to Sunday dinner. Just family, she said when I answered the phone. I haven't seen Sophie in a while, and I thought it would be nice to have everyone together. It wasn't unusual for Diane to host family dinners, but something in her tone made me suspicious. There was a formality there that felt more like a summons than an invitation. That sounds nice, I said carefully. Should I bring anything? Just yourselves. I'll take care of everything. When I told Eric about the dinner, he just nodded. What time? She said 6. Eric, is everything okay with your mom? She seemed, I don't know, different when she picked up Sophie on Monday. Different how? Colder, like she was mad at me about something. Eric looked at me with that same unreadable expression he'd been wearing all week. Are you sure you can't think of any reason why she might be upset with you? The question hung in the air between us, loaded with implication. Did Eric tell his mother about the photos? About his suspicions? No, I said firmly. I can't. Sunday evening arrived grey and drizzly, matching my mood perfectly. I'd spent extra time getting ready, choosing a conservative dress and minimal makeup. If this dinner was some kind of test, I wanted to pass it. Sophie chattered excitedly in the back seat during the drive to Diane's house. She loved her grandmother's cooking and always looked forward to family gatherings. I envied her innocence, her ability to exist in the moment without worrying about undercurrents and hidden meanings. Diane's house was a modest ranch in an older neighborhood, the kind of place where she'd raised Eric and his younger brother, Liam. The front yard was meticulously maintained, with seasonal flowers planted in precise rows. Everything about Diane was precise, controlled, proper. She greeted us at the door wearing her good dress and her company smile. Come in, Sophie, you've gotten so tall." Sophie beamed and hugged her grandmother while Eric kissed Diane's cheek. When it was my turn, Diane's embrace felt perfunctory, lasting exactly long enough to be polite, and not a second more. "Something smells amazing," I said, trying to inject warmth into my voice. Pot roast, Eric's favorite. Liam was already there, sitting at the kitchen counter with a beer. At 28, he was still single and living in an apartment downtown, working as a graphic designer. He'd always been the more laid-back of the two brothers, quick with a joke and slow to judge. But tonight, even he seemed subdued. "Hey, Ianthe," he said, giving me a quick hug. "How's work going?" "Good, busy. You know how it is." "Yeah, I heard you had a conference recently. Denver, right?" I felt Eric's eyes on me and chose my words carefully. "Just a marketing conference. Pretty boring stuff. Still, nice to get away sometimes. See new places, meet new people." There was something in the way he said, "meet new people," that made my skin crawl. Did he know too? Had Eric told his entire family about those photos? Dinner was a tense affair disguised as a pleasant family gathering. Diane had made all of Eric's favorite foods, and she fussed over Sophie like she was trying to memorize every detail about her granddaughter. The conversation stayed safely on neutral topics: Sophie's school play, Liam's latest design projects, the weather, but I could feel the undercurrent of tension running beneath the polite small talk. Diane's smiles never quite reached her eyes when she looked at me. Liam kept glancing between Eric and me, like he was waiting for something to happen, and Eric sat there quietly, eating his mother's pot roast and contributing just enough to the conversation to avoid awkward silences. After dinner, while Sophie was in the living room watching TV, the four adults lingered around the dining room table. Diane was serving coffee and her famous apple pie when she finally dropped her mask of politeness. "So, Ianthe," she said, her voice carefully neutral, "Eric tells me you've been working closely with some new colleagues lately." My heart started racing, but I kept my expression calm. "Not really. Same team I've always worked with." "What about at the conference? I imagine you met lots of interesting people there." "A few. Mostly just sat through presentations and networked a bit." "Networking is so important in business these days," Diane continued, cutting precise slices of pie. "Building relationships, making connections. Though I suppose some connections are more personal than others." The words hit like a physical blow. She knew. Somehow, Diane knew about Cameron, and she was playing with me like a cat with a mouse. "I'm not sure what you mean," I said, proud of how steady my voice sounded. "Don't you?" Diane set a piece of pie in front of me, with just a little more force than necessary. "I mean, when you're away from home, away from your family, it must be tempting to let loose a little, especially when you meet someone charming and attentive." "Mum," Liam said quietly, a warning in his voice. But Diane wasn't done. "I just think it's important for wives to remember their priorities, their commitments. Don't you agree, Ianthe?" I felt like I was suffocating. Every eye was on me, waiting for my response. Sophie's laughter drifted in from the living room, a reminder of everything I stood to lose. "Of course," I managed. "Family always comes first." "Does it?" Diane's voice was sharp now, all pretense of politeness gone. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've forgotten that." "That's enough," Eric said suddenly. His voice was quiet but firm. "Mum, that's enough." "Is it? Because I've been watching my son walk around like a ghost for a week, and I think I have a right to—" "You have a right to your opinion," Eric interrupted, "but this is between Ianthe and me." Diane's mouth tightened into a thin line. "Fine, but Eric, you know where I stand on this." The rest of the evening was excruciating. We made it through dessert and coffee, but the damage was done. Sophie picked up on the tension and became clingy, asking repeatedly when we were going home. When we finally left, Diane's goodbye to me was arctic. "Take care of yourself, Ianthe," she said at the door, "and remember what we talked about." The drive home was silent except for Sophie's chatter about her grandmother's pie and the movie she'd watched. Eric stared straight ahead, his hands gripping the steering wheel tighter than necessary. After Sophie was in bed, I cornered him in our bedroom. "Did you tell your mother about those photos?" He was changing into pajamas, moving with mechanical precision. "I told her I was having some concerns about our marriage." "Concerns? Eric, she practically accused me of having an affair in front of your brother." "Did she? I thought she was just making conversation about your trip." "Don't play dumb. You know exactly what she was doing." He turned to face me then, and I saw something break in his expression. "What I know, Ianthe, is that my mother raised me to believe that marriage was sacred, that when you make vows to someone, you keep them. And what I know is that she can see I'm falling apart, and she's trying to protect me the only way she knows how. By attacking me, by calling you out on your lies." The words hung between us like a slap. "My lies? You sat there tonight and looked my mother in the eye and lied to her. Just like you've been lying to me for a week. Just like you've probably been lying to me for months." "I haven't been lying." "Stop." His voice was so quiet I had to strain to hear it. "Just stop. I can't do this anymore, Ianthe. I can't keep pretending that everything is normal when I know it's not. I can't keep waiting for you to tell me the truth when it's clear you never will." "What truth? What do you want me to say?" "I want you to say what happened in Denver. I want you to tell me about Cameron Lee. I want you to stop treating me like I'm stupid and just tell me the truth." My mouth went dry. He knew Cameron's name. Somehow Eric knew Cameron's name. How do you know his name? Eric sat down heavily on the edge of our bed. Because I called the hotel Ianthe. I called and asked if they could tell me who you might have been seen with. Described the man in the photos. They were very helpful. Apparently, you and Mr. Lee were quite memorable. I felt the walls closing in around me. Eric, please, let me explain. Explain what? Explain how you ended up in another man's hotel room. Explain how you came home and kissed our daughter goodnight after spending the night with someone else. Explain how you've been lying to my face for a week. Tears started flowing down my cheeks. It wasn't supposed to happen. It was a mistake. A stupid, meaningless mistake. Meaningless? Eric's voice cracked. Our marriage is meaningless. Our family is meaningless. No, that's not what I meant. Cameron doesn't mean anything to me. You and Sophie, you're everything. That's why I didn't tell you. I was trying to protect us. By lying. By not destroying everything over one night that didn't matter. Eric stared at me for a long moment, and I saw something die in his eyes. If it didn't matter, Ianthe, then why did you do it? I opened my mouth to answer, but realized I didn't have one. Not one that would make sense to him. Not one that wouldn't make everything worse. I don't know, I whispered. Neither do I, he said, and that's the problem. He grabbed his pillow and a blanket from our closet. I'll be sleeping in the guest room tonight, and probably for a while. Eric, please, can't we talk about this? Can't we try to work through it? He paused at the bedroom door. I've been trying to work through it for a week, Ianthe. I've been hoping you'd come to me and tell me the truth. That you'd trust me enough to be honest about what happened. But you didn't. You chose to lie instead. And now I don't know how to trust anything you say. After he left, I sat alone on our bed, staring at the empty space where he should have been sleeping. Everything was falling apart, and I didn't know how to stop it. Worse, I was starting to realize that maybe I didn't deserve to stop it. But I had to try. For Sophie's sake, if not for my own, I had to find a way to fix this. Even if it meant swallowing my pride and begging for forgiveness I wasn't sure I deserved.